Very much, guys. Mr. Bhat, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC-TV18. You've tendered in your resignation as a board member of Tata Chemicals late last night, Mr. Bhat. You know, we had a statement that was issued by the independent directors of Tata Chemicals stating that unanimously they supported Cyrus Mistri's continuation as chairman. Why did you feel the need to resign, Mr. Bhat?
Well, I think the independent directors had a right to say whatever they had, and it somehow is seen as a statement made by the board itself, and I'm not saying that it was misrepresented. There are several risks Tata Chemicals faces on account of the loss of confidence of Tata Sons. Having been asked to step down as chairman of Tata Sons, and Tata Sons is the promoter of Tata Chemicals, I naturally believe that you shouldn't be chairing this meeting. And I requested that an independent director chair the meeting.
But that request was declined.
The risks that were connected with the fracture of the relationship with Tata Sons was what I was talking about, and therefore I requested that he doesn't chair. The risks were detailed out by me in the presence of the independent directors and Mr. Cyrus Mistry. There were no discussions addressing these risks, and the independent directors instead went on to make a statement which did not take into account my views. And of course, the board is the most important entity apart from the AGM in a company, and therefore, giving due respect to the board and the independent directors, I felt that I could no longer contribute to the board and chose to resign.
You said that you detailed out risks in the board meeting which were not represented in the statement that was issued last night by the independent directors. Can you take us through what were the key risks that you detailed in that board meeting, Mr. Bhat?
I'm afraid I cannot talk about that because I respect the board, and that is not right. It is just that there were risks, and the independent director's statement instead talks about everything being as is, where is, and the great comfort, and the board having great confidence. Of course, board has got great. Board has to. The company is going through significant turmoil, and it has to be managed by the board, and it's a great board, and it will handle the situation. But the risks, the statement simply did not address the risk. It was, and there is no need for the independent directors to make a statement like this, but they have the right, and I respect them, and they made it, and they made it in the right spirit. But since it did not take into account my views, I felt they are no longer required. My services are no longer required. So I did the right thing by stepping off the board, and they should continue to contribute. It's a great company. It will do well.
Mr. Bhat, was there anybody else on the board who expressed your concerns as well? I mean, or raised similar concerns that you may have raised? Because the statement says it was unanimous that all board members felt exactly the same way. Were you the only one who raised these concerns? Were there any other members of the board who raised similar concerns?
Shereen, please read the statement of the independent directors. The independent directors unanimously agreed. They have not said that the board agreed, so you should not read more into the independent director's statement. The independent directors unanimously agreed.
Okay. Did the executive members on the board, sir, raise concerns that you have also raised? You've talked about this rupture and the loss of confidence and how that could impact Tata Chemicals. Were there executive directors who raised these concerns at the board meeting?
At various points, the executive directors did raise risks that the company would face. Yes, it was raised by the executive, and certainly some independent directors as well had raised, but these did not seem to every director knows that there are risks, and I don't recall exactly what risks was raised by who, but my point is my view was not perhaps taken into account because that statement did not reflect my view.
All right, Mr. Bhat, we appreciate you joining us here on CNBC-TV18. Bhaskar Bhat, the former director of Tata Chemicals, resigning from the board of Tata Chemicals last night, saying that his views and the risks that he had detailed in that board meeting were not represented in the statement that was issued by independent directors. But there's plenty more that's happening in the markets, guys.